Hi, I'm Cassie, and I would like to begin by sending blessings to everyone on the planet. In this video, I'd like to talk about the dark night of the soul. During spiritual initiation or active kundalini ascension stages, there are four main types of the down cycle of spiritual crisis, which could variously be associated with what the ancients and mystics have called the dark night of the soul. These phases of spiritual development are unavoidable, such as the living death or ego death. They must occur for resurrection of the spiritual body and mind, and all must enter the dark night of the soul or spiritual crisis, perhaps many times during the process cycle of evolution during the spiritual ascension process. The planet is undergoing a global level of the dark night of the planetary collective soul during the ascension cycle, and the deeper one goes into a die-off stage to drop density, the greater the spiritual resurrection. Similarly, the more one allows the influx of kundalini spirit phases during the heart and consciousness expansion, the deeper one goes in the die-off stages. The die-off stages are either acute or chronic, depending on the person and the phase of awakening. It happens after each influx of spirit, the spiritual initiation stages. As the flesh transmutes, there is a die-off of the conventional conditional structures, as well as all potential toxins throughout the bodies, physically and mentally, emotionally and spiritually energetic. And for every influx of kundalini spirit through spiritual initiation, there is an accompanying catabolic breakdown of the former body, apoptosis, or some form of die-off to release and transmute toxins. Only those people that have the kundalini flow up the spine and the experience of extreme bliss or electromagnetic influx or massive spiritual opening events are going to experience the die-off. Die-offs are distinct periods of catabolic breakdown in which there is no operative ego other than that which is sufficient to drag one off the couch and to the bathroom when appropriate. The incarnated station of our identity, that was our personality matrix, the aspect that was enmeshed with the lower three-dimensional frequencies, is also dissolving, and what this equates to is the dissolution of our personality matrix or station of identity that is located in the lower three dimensions, and moving that aspect of our identity into the higher frequency bands of our soul matrix or higher station of identity. We can see the effects of this consciousness shift in the global scape. The range of experience for some people is from sensations of great anxiety, stress and mental confusion, all the way to the descent into madness and insane behaviours. And most people are not aware that they are losing coherence and are unaware of the causality of what is actually influencing the way they think and behave. The lower dimensional contents that exist in the planetary collective consciousness fields are undergoing massive reconfiguration in multiple ways. This energetic change in three-dimensional reality has reached critical mass, which means it is greatly impacting all people of the earth. Whether asleep or awake, the self-mastery that has been either lost or gained is measured in how you personally deal with stress and chaos. No person on this earth is exempt from the exposure to the massive fields of chaos, confusion and darkness that exist in the collective mind of humanity. During this time, our inner energetic integrity is tested in order to hold neutrality while facing the great forces of chaos, and this is being tested in every person just from the mere fact of being on the earth at this time. And so how well we are able to adapt to change and hold neutrality in every kind of stressful situation is important. We have to measure our competency level now. If we are not doing well with adaptability, flexibility and neutrality in our life situation, then we must make adjustments to gain strength with this skill set. This is the time to take stock of how well we are coping with the madness of the earth as the collective mind of humanity travels the dark night of the soul. And so what is this going to take, and what is being asked of us. All people must take responsibility for the quality of their thoughts, behaviours and actions, as all consciousness that is created has a direct cause and effect. Since 2009, it has been consistently emphasised the necessity of moving out of 3D consciousness fields and from feeding those energies by identifying and clearing the 3 layers of the negative ego that are run in the lower dimensional fields. And the clearing of negative ego is mandatory in order to adapt to the shifting timelines and to maintain coherence and sanity. It is imperative to address unresolved conflicts that create anxiety in our mind, emotions and body, and apply clearing and healing tools that replace our previous ways of thinking with neutrality, love and peace. There are 4 main types of spiritual crisis, down cycle events in metamorphosis that need to be clearly understood to prevent unnecessary suffering and secondary backlash. The first is known as lightning, and this is a terror event of intense energy pouring up and into the body, similar to a euphoric inner conjunction of spiritual activation, but in this case it is an inner conjunction of feeling great discomfort, anxiety, pain and fear. Here we descend deeply into our matter and flesh and experience inner fears or energy blockages, or experience external anxiety with no apparent cause. We may be accessing buried parts of our unconscious mind or cellular memories that are embedded in our bodies. This negative inner conjunction mostly occurs during one's first initial awakening stages, which can help to surface hidden fears or pain located in the pain body. This terror or fear is the polar opposite to the spontaneous bliss awakening in a neophyte body at the early soul initiations for those that are familiar with such intensity of expanding consciousness and energy. The second type of spiritual crisis down cycle event in this metamorphosis is shock, white death, autonomic shock in the central nervous system that occurs immediately after a mystical or ecstatic experience with kundalini spiritual activation, and that is the contraction and toxic overload after a significant opening to the extreme bliss of a euphoric inner conjunction event or a spiritual initiation stage into a higher frequency or level of the light body. Sometimes in this stage a person can feel numb, apathetic or in a void. The third type of spiritual crisis down cycle is self-digestion, and this is the die-off of toxins or waste, which are a catabolic breakdown of the former structures through apoptosis due to oxidation by free radicals and then phagocytosis by the macrophages. And this is a physical event and a spiritual energetic event, and so one can experience a cleansing cycle similar to detoxification through the elimination channels of the body. Detoxification at all levels of the body occurs, including a mental and emotional detoxification of the pain body and ego personality, changes in the hormonal structure and also endocrine functions. This is also the process of ego death. The fourth type of spiritual crisis down cycle event in this metamorphosis is a burnout, and this is the exhaustion phase of the overall spiritual awakening cycle, where the body's resources of neurotransmitters, hormones and nutrients have been used up in the climb to the escalation heights of the spiritual awakening peak. During exhaustion, depression arises, yet there is permanent bliss or peace, giving the sense of being disassociated from depression. And so some suggestions to support ego death are to relax as much as possible in the down cycle, surrender and allow the process of the dark night. Make yourself comfortable without suppressing symptoms, without escaping to run away or propping yourself up with distractions and stimulants. A spiritual die-off is a free radical storm which may induce stress. De-stress and take good care of your body. consume superfoods or doses of antioxidants for protection. Also, if guided, take support supplements and use essential oils that help the thyroid, kelp and nettle leaf, the adrenals, licorice and vitamin C, the nerves, vitamin Bs and hormones, ginseng and gotu kola. Drink at least 10 glasses of water a day and take a bath to rehydrate if possible. Use bath salts. The body has a huge demand for water and biochemical cell salts during a die-off phase, detoxification, and during spiritual activation. If one is accelerated in full detoxification of toxin die-off, one may experience ascension symptoms like ascension flu. The immune system is essentially dismantling the body, and all one can do is rest in bed and not eat much of anything. And it is best not to eat while the body is in catabolic breakdown mode, or digestion will draw energy away from the transmutation of the flesh, and the resurrection will not be as complete. One may create toxicity and tissue damage if you work against the natural breakdown cycle and ignore the body's request for rest, cleansing, or fasting. And so giving up the personality is the first stage of really living. Until we give up and surrender to our spirit, we have been trying to live from that concept of the ego personality self instead of higher spiritual or Christ self. It is often the case with human action that what we manifest through our ego efforts turns out the very opposite of what we intended. This die-off is the most extreme experience of nature stepping in to help us move beyond the known experience of the ego and into the vast reaches of a mystic perception of the universe. The deeper the surrender to the living death of the spiritual ascension process, the more we can actually incarnate and embody spirit in the flesh. The symptoms of psycho-spiritual crises represent a manifestation and exteriorization of the deep dynamics of the human psyche and consciousness. The individual human psyche is a multi-dimensional consciousness and multi-level system with no internal divisions or boundaries. We cannot, therefore, expect to find clearly defined and demarcated types of spiritual emergency. Working with individuals in psycho-spiritual crises, exchanging with colleagues who do similar work, and by studying pertinent literature, confirms that it is possible and useful to outline certain major forms of psycho-spiritual crises which have characteristic features which are differentiated from others, and naturally their boundaries are not clear, and in practice there are indeed some overlaps among them. There are a variety of psycho-spiritual crises, for example, a shamanic crisis, an awakening of kundalini, episodes of unitive consciousness, psychological renewal through the return to the center, a crisis of psychic opening, past life experiences, communication with spirit guides and channeling, near-death experiences, close encounters with UFOs and alien abduction experiences, possession states and alcoholism and drug addiction. And so, during the dark night of the soul, many people do not have clarity on the actual causal source of where their fear and pain impulses are coming from. Much of what is being experienced now is being greatly amplified through the hidden fear, buried trauma and emotional wounds from our past. We cannot run away from darkness, and we cannot hide from our hidden and buried fears any longer. When we are aware of our perceptions of fear, we can then see the macrocosm agenda of using the frequency of fear to increase darkness in our world and create mind control slaves. And so, to reclaim our sanity and spiritual freedom, we must make effort to overcome fear. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.